School of our Divine Infinite Being, Central Doctrine.
Iamblichus on the soul's descent, the inverted soul, and integration of the daemonic forces.
For Iamblichus, the doctrine of the undescended soul struck at the heart of Platonic paideia, education, because it threatened to desacralize and demonize the cosmos. Gregory Shaw, Theurgy and the Soul, the Neoplatonism of Iamblichus.
At the heart of Iamblichus's philosophy lies a deep reverence for the unity of the cosmos, the divine and the human soul. Unlike other Neoplatonists of his time, Iamblichus saw the descent of the soul into the material world not as a fall but as a necessary and sacred process, a flowering into existence in the expression of the one through multiplicity. His understanding of theurgy, a spiritual practice involving ritual and alignment with divine forces, was deeply rooted in this holistic view of existence. The cosmos was not a realm to escape, but a sacred reflection of divine principles, a space where human beings could reconnect with their divine origin through embodied experiences. This perspective set Iamblichus apart from other prominent thinkers of the era, such as the Gnostics and even his predecessor Plotinus. For the Gnostics, the material world was an imprisoning illusion, the creation of a flawed Demiurge. Their spiritual goal was to escape the confines of matter and ascend to a purely spiritual reality. Plotinus, while rejecting the Gnostic vilification of matter, still maintained that the highest aspect of the soul remained undescended, untouched by the generative forces of the material world. Both perspectives, Iamblichus argued, failed to grasp the sacred interconnectedness of all existence. By placing the undescended soul at the center of Platonic education, or paideia, these doctrines threatened to sever humanity's connection with the divine through the material cosmos. Iamblichus viewed this as a profound misunderstanding of the soul's purpose and the divine order of the universe. When examining our doctrine in relation to the divine double and Susskind's explanation, we find an intriguing equivalence between the temporal realm of experience and the infinite immortal realm of the divine double. This divine double is interwoven at every point of the cosmic horizon with the entirety of the cosmos. Similarly, Iamblichus believed in an eternal, infinite, and immortal soul, yet he asserted that this soul is fully incarnated in the world of generative experience. This perspective aligns with the understanding offered by string theory, which suggests that although we are interwoven with the entire cosmos, transcendent, infinite, and existing outside of space and time, our temporal experience remains fully rooted in the reality of the third-dimensional space. We exist simultaneously here and there, not more in one realm and less in the other. Rather, there is a fundamental equivalence between these states of being. A simpler way to grasp this concept is through the principle of indeterminacy, as Susskind demonstrated with his use of the law of complementarity. The particle, your waking world self, and the wave, your infinite immortal nature, are not two separate entities but one unified existence of the exact same phenomena. We are fully embodied in reality while simultaneously interwoven with every point of the spherical cosmic horizon. Both aspects of our being coexist in totality. Without this intrinsic dual unity, the practice of theurgy would be impossible. The intellectual and spiritual climate of late antiquity was characterized by a tension between dualistic and holistic views of the cosmos. The Gnostic worldview, in particular, painted a bleak picture of material existence, portraying it as a trap set by a malevolent creator. This dualistic division between spirit and matter resonated with some strands of early Christian theology, which often emphasized the fallen nature of the physical world and the need for salvation through transcendence. We follow Thomasian Christianity, which is much more Platonic, which relates to the Iamblican view. Many early scholars equated the Gospel of Thomas as Gnostic, but this has been cleared up as of recent scholarship. Plotinus, a towering figure in Neoplatonism, countered these ideas by affirming the divine origin of the cosmos. However, his doctrine of the undescended soul perpetuated a subtle form of dualism. By asserting that the highest part of the soul remained untainted by embodiment, Plotinus effectively relegated the material world to a lower, less significant status. This perspective, while less severe than Gnosticism, still desacralized the material cosmos and diminished its role in the soul's spiritual journey. Iamblichus, in contrast, insisted on the full embodiment of the soul as a necessary and sacred aspect of divine manifestation. For him, the cosmos was not merely a reflection of divine principles, but an active, living expression of them. The material world, with all its generative and emotional forces, was an integral part of the divine order, a space where the soul could engage in a transformative process of growth and alignment.
Without the goodness of a material world connected to the gods, Iamblichus, as a Platonist, could not have encouraged rituals that invoke the powers of the physical cosmos. If matter was the cause of evil and human suffering, as many argued, a Platonic theurgy would have been inconceivable. Gregory Shaw, Theurgy and the Soul, the Neoplatonism of Iamblichus.
Iamblichus's philosophy challenges us to reconsider our relationship with the material world. Instead of viewing it as a realm to escape, he invites us to see it as a sacred arena for spiritual transformation. This perspective has profound implications for how we approach ritual, education, and the practice of theurgy. Advaita Vedanta, within the Śākta tradition, resonates deeply with this principle. While classical Advaita Vedanta emphasizes the non-dual nature of reality, identifying Brahman as the ultimate truth, and the world, Maya, as illusory, Śākta Advaita introduces a redefined perspective. In this view, Maya is not merely a delusion to overcome, but the dynamic expression of Shakti, the divine feminine power. Shakti is both the creator and the created, immanent within the universe and transcendent as its source. This dual role mirrors Iamblichus's assertion that the material world is not separate from divinity, but a sacred manifestation of it, a flowering of the cosmic expression. For the Shakta adherent, the world is a theater of divine play, lila, where spiritual growth occurs not through renunciation alone, but through engagement with life's experiences. Rituals, meditative practices, and even daily activities become acts of devotion that honor Shakti's presence in all things. This approach aligns with Iamblichus's theurgical practices, where rituals are not merely symbolic but transformative acts that unite the practitioner with the divine. Both philosophies assert that the divine can be encountered in the material, elevating the mundane to the sacred through conscious participation. Moreover, just as Iamblichus emphasizes the importance of intermediary forces, daemons, deities, and cosmic principles, Śākta Advaita highlights the role of Shakti's myriad forms in guiding the soul towards liberation. These forms, whether envisioned as Durga, Kali, or Lakshmi, are not distractions but pathways that reveal different aspects of the divine reality. Engaging with these forms deepens the practitioner's understanding of unity in diversity, much like theurgical practices aim to harmonize the soul with the cosmos through a polytheistic view of gods, goddesses, and daemonic spirits. Ultimately, both traditions encourage a rethinking of spiritual dualism, where Iamblichus sees the material world as a mirror of divine truths. Śākta Advaita views the cosmos as a living embodiment of Shakti. In this shared vision, spiritual transformation arises not from rejecting the world, but from embracing it as an essential part of the divine whole. This perspective fosters a spirituality that is grounded, holistic, and deeply connected to the rhythms of existence. Central to Iamblichus's teachings is the doctrine of the soul's descent. Unlike Plotinus, who viewed embodiment as a state of confusion, Iamblichus celebrated it as a sacred journey. The soul, in descending into the material world, participates in the divine act of creation. This descent is not a loss or a fall, but an opportunity for the soul to align itself with the divine order through the transformative experience of embodiment.
For Iamblichus, such arguments were futile without the corollary doctrine of the soul's descent. If, as Platonists believed, the soul does not truly become embodied, then the manifestation of the divine as cosmos would have little or no role in the soul's paideia. Gregory Shaw, Theurgy and the Soul, the Neoplatonism of Iamblichus.
Through its descent, the soul engages with the archetypal structures of the cosmos, aligning itself with the divine principles that govern existence. This process is not without its challenges, as the generative and emotional forces of the material world can create confusion and imbalance. However, these challenges are integral to the soul's growth, offering opportunities for transformation and self-realization. Iamblichus's emphasis on the soul's descent and fully embodied nature stands as a radical affirmation of the sacredness of the material world. By embracing the generative forces of existence, the soul participates in the divine order, transforming chaos into harmony and discovering its true nature as a reflection of the divine. The concept of the inverted soul delves deeply into the transformative process by which an individual can realign their generative forces, moving from disarray and misalignment back to harmony with the Demiurge. In Neoplatonic and theurgical traditions, the inverted soul represents a state of disconnection from divine principles, where the daemonic generative energies of life, instead of fostering unity in creation, become fragmented and chaotic. This misalignment is often experienced as negative, paranoid, or fearful external influences, which are not separate from the soul but reflections of its own inner disintegration. To reintegrate these aspects is to embark on a journey of spiritual reconciliation and transformation. The generative forces of the embodied life, as understood in Platonic and theurgical traditions, are the dynamic energies that manifest creation and sustain existence. However, when these forces are inverted, they lead to spiritual confusion, reinforcing the soul's identification with the material world and obscuring its divine origin. To reverse these forces requires conscious effort, engaging in practices that realign the soul with its higher purpose. Theurgy, meditation, and ritual are central to this process, offering a pathway to redirect these energies towards divine harmony. Our school's 15-month dedicated theurgic journey through the daemonic forces of the minor arcana was created around this very purpose.
Through its descent, the soul engages with the archetypal structures of the cosmos, aligning itself with the divine principles that govern existence. Gregory Shaw, Theurgy and the Soul, the Neoplatonism of Iamblichus.
Iamblichus emphasized that the soul's descent into the material world is not inherently a fall but an opportunity for alignment and growth. However, when the soul becomes ensnared by material desires and loses sight of its divine origin, this descent takes on the appearance of an inversion. The first step in reversing the generative forces is recognizing their distortion. Negative external influences, whether daemonic, fearful, or chaotic, are projections of the soul's inner state. These forces arise when the soul's energies are turned inward destructively rather than outward in harmony with the cosmic order. To confront these influences is to begin the process of reintegration, acknowledging them as parts of the self that must be transformed. The reintegration of the inverted soul involves embracing and transforming the fragmented aspects of one's being. Iamblichus's theurgical practices offer a profound framework for this transformation. Rituals and invocations are not mere symbols, but active engagements with divine principles, designed to restore the soul's alignment with the cosmos. As Shaw stated, without the goodness of a material world connected to the gods, Platonic theurgy would have been inconceivable. This stresses the importance of viewing the material world not as an obstacle, but as a sacred arena for spiritual growth. Individuals often experience the fragmented and disassociated aspects of their soul as externalized energies. These constellated forces can manifest as sensations of being watched or as inexplicable disturbances in the physical environment, such as doors slamming or lights flickering, which seem to act with an autonomous will. These phenomena are not external threats, but inverted manifestations of the soul's internal disarray. They are signals of aspects within the self that seek recognition and integration, which can become powerful enough to affect the direct environment. Confronting these manifestations through spiritual practice and self-awareness allows the practitioner to reclaim and harmonize these fragmented energies. Reversing the inverted soul's forces and reintegrating its fragmented aspects ultimately leads to a profound realignment with the Demiurge, the creator of the cosmos. This process is both a return of the soul's divine origin and a forward-moving journey of growth. The daemonic generative forces, once chaotic and misaligned, become harmonized, fostering a deeper connection with the divine order. Shaw captured this beautifully. The descent of the soul into the material world is not a loss, but an opportunity for the soul to align itself with the divine order through the transformative experiences of embodiment. The fear and negativity experienced in the state of the inverted soul are not to be ignored, but understood and integrated. Aspects of the self that appear to wrestle and conflict with the daemonic are expressions of the soul's disconnection from its higher nature. By embracing these aspects, one can transform them, discovering their underlying divine essence. Through theurgy, meditation, and the conscious reversal of the daemonic generative forces, the soul embarks on a journey back to wholeness. This path is not an escape from the material world, but a profound engagement with it, recognizing the sacredness of all existence. In aligning with the Demiurge, the soul not only transcends its inversion, but also participates actively in the divine order, transforming chaos into harmony and fear into love. This sacred journey is the ultimate reconciliation, where the inverted soul finds its true place, reflecting the unity and perfection of the divine, participating in the creation and salvation of the cosmos, becoming a microcosm within the macrocosmic order. Embracing perennial mondialism as Platonic theurgists. Acceptance of all faiths. We have dedicated several chapters to discussing the history of polytheism and Christian dogma, particularly concerning daemons, demons, and what we can plainly be described as fallacies of the Church. This was a necessary exploration and an important distinction for the practicing theurgist. Beyond this, I want to make something abundantly clear. While there may be differences in perspectives on what constitutes a benevolent force, there is far more agreement between theurgists and today's practicing religious thinkers. Far more, in fact, than between a theurgist and an atheist. When you speak of God as a Christian, Allah as a Muslim, the Great Spirit as a Native American, or any other instantiation of the totality state of existence, we theurgists recognize that we are all addressing the same ultimate reality, our divine infinite being. Some might perceive perennial mondialism, the core tenet of our theurgic faith, as just another elitist canon, as if we alone discern the eternal truths buried in religious texts and philosophies. Granted, there are indeed occultists who lean towards this exclusivity of grandeur as they delve deeper into study and learning over time. However, this is far from the intent of the school of our divine infinite being. As we have taught, all sincere strivings towards the eternal, whether through prayer, meditation, ritual, or any true acts of discipline and faith, are equal in their essence. Our unique approach does not elevate us above others, rather it equips us to engage deeply with all spiritual paths. When we encounter believers, Christian, Hindu, Jewish, or from any other tradition, we recognize them as fellow children of the infinite, united in their pursuit of divine connection. The eternal and infinite coherent geometric unity at the heart of all existence shines through every soul. Each person, a causal diamond reflecting the totality of infinite space-time, is an integral part of the same supreme self, our divine infinite being. Through their unique lens, each reflects the truth of existence, one and the same as all. The diversity of languages, symbols, and narratives across cultures may veil this unity, but it never diminishes it. Beneath these differences resides absolute truth, an unchanging reality that transcends and unites all distinctions, guiding every soul towards coherence, irrespective of creed or philosophy. Life's richness is found in this diversity, with each perspective adding depth to our collective understanding of the infinite. Contrary to the narrative of secular atheism, religious affiliation remains a cornerstone of human existence. According to the Pew Research Center, 84% of the global population identifies with a religious group, a testament to the enduring significance of the spiritual quest. This widespread commitment reflects humanity's innate drive to connect with the universe's infinite totality. Far from being a source of division, the diversity of religious expressions underscores the manifold ways in which the eternal reveals itself. Whether one encounters the divine through the Christian Trinity, the Hindu pantheon, the teachings of Islam, or the sanctity of the natural world, the pursuits remain the same: to harmonize with the Absolute. Each path, in its own way, contributes to the grand mosaic of spiritual understanding, affirming that every sincere striving draws us closer to the inherent unity and expression of the one true reality. The essence of divine revelation, as understood within the framework of theurgy in Platonic metaphysics, resists confinement to a singular form or expression. To claim that the infinite can be fully captured by any one tradition or symbol violates the core principles that the divine is intrinsically ineffable, unveiling itself through a multiplicity of forms and veils. This recognition, foundational to both Iamblichus's Neoplatonism and Hegel's notion of the absolute spirit, underscores the dynamic and evolving relationship between humanity and the divine. Platonic thought asserts that the One, the ultimate source of all existence, is beyond comprehension and articulation. This metaphysical insight informed the practices of theurgical traditions, which relied on symbols, gods, goddesses, daemons, myths, rituals, and divine intelligences as mediators between the finite and the infinite. These veils of multiplicity are not obstacles but necessary conduits, allowing individuals to engage with the divine in a manner suited to their cultural, intellectual, and spiritual contexts. Far from diminishing the truth, this multiplicity enriches it, affirming that no single revelation can monopolize the divine. In this light, polytheistic monism, the central idea behind the theurgic religious mindset, emerges not as a denial of unity but as a recognition of its complexity. The gods in their diverse manifestations reflect the infinite facets of the One, providing distinct yet interconnected pathways to divine union. Iamblichus, in particular, championed this view, emphasizing that theurgical rites, whether through prayer, invocation, or ritual, facilitate an ascent to the divine that honors the ineffable nature of its source. These practices affirm that the ultimate reality is not static but dynamic, manifesting through time and culture in ways that transcend literalism. Hegel's philosophy of the absolute spirit complements this theurgical perspective. For Hegel, the absolute unfolds through history, revealing itself in the evolving interplay of ideas, cultures, and institutions. This process mirrors the theurgical understanding of divine revelation as an ongoing and multifaceted journey. Just as the absolute manifests through time, the divine reveals itself through a kaleidoscope of spiritual traditions, each contributing to the greater whole. To privilege one tradition or expression over others is to misunderstand the very nature of the divine's self-disclosure. Although we have spent considerable effort arguing that the Church warped the ancient concept of daemons into the Christian notion of demons, it is important to affirm that this critique does not invalidate the profound spiritual experiences one can encounter within the Church or any other religious tradition. Through the perennial lens of the theurgist, we recognize that the essence of divine revelation remains accessible across traditions, including Catholicism, Orthodoxy, and countless other spiritual paths. In fact, participating in the sacred liturgies of these traditions can be a deeply moving and transformative experience. The symbols, sacraments, and rituals of the Church are, in their own way, veils of the divine, portals through which the infinite being reveals itself to those who seek. Far from opposing these expressions of the sacred, we feel entirely at home alongside the Christians and other believers as they commune with the Holy Spirit. The theological disagreements and historical missteps do not overshadow the shared awe between the mystery of existence, nor do they diminish the reality of divine presence that permeates sacred spaces. When the faithful kneel before the altar or receive the Eucharist, they are engaging with the same transcendent force that the theurgist seeks through ritual and invocation. The multiplicity of spiritual practices, whether rooted in ancient polytheism or modern Christianity, reflects the inexhaustible richness of the divine and its desire to connect with humanity in every possible way. Thus, we stand not in opposition to these traditions, but in solidarity with them, affirming their ability to guide souls towards the infinite. This perspective challenges the exclusivist claims often made by religious literalism, which seeks to reduce the infinite to a singular dogma or narrative. Such claims not only impoverish the richness of spiritual experience, but also betray the underlying unity that binds all traditions. Theurgy and metaphysical philosophy remind us that every genuine spiritual path, whether expressed through myth, ritual, or theology, is an attempt to engage with this same ineffable reality. Each tradition, with its unique symbols and practices, offers a lens through which to glimpse the infinite. In affirming the plurality of divine revelation, we also affirm the unity that underlies it. The diversity of forms through which the divine manifests does not contradict its oneness. Rather, it reflects its boundless nature. This insight calls for a radical openness to other traditions, recognizing that each contains fragments of the eternal. As Hegel's absolute spirit evolves through history, so too does humanity's understanding of the divine, enriched by the interplay of diverse perspectives. In recognizing the multiplicity of divine expressions, theurgy also invites an ethical reorientation. By affirming the validity of diverse spiritual paths, we cultivate humility and mutual respect, fostering a global community united by the shared pursuit of the eternal. This inclusivity does not dilute the integrity of individual traditions, but enriches them, highlighting their unique contributions to the continual unfoldment of divine revelation. As we engage with the myths, rituals, and philosophies of other cultures, we not only expand our understanding, but also deepen our connection to the ineffable source that transcends all boundaries. As Iamblichus observed from the Chaldean oracles, every god is good, all things have been generated for one fire. This profound insight encapsulates the theurgical vision of unity, underlying the diversity of divine manifestations. Each god, ritual, or symbol represents an aspect of the ineffable one, allowing practitioners to engage with the divine through a prism of multiplicity. This understanding dismantles the false dichotomy between monotheism and polytheism, affirming that all spiritual practices are rooted in the same ultimate reality. This openness to diverse expressions of the divine is not a rejection of personal faith, but an enrichment of it. As Hegel's absolute spirit unfolds through history, so too does our collective understanding of the divine expand through the interplay of cultural and spiritual traditions. This dynamic process invites us to embrace the complexity of the infinite, recognizing that the diversity of divine expressions reflects its boundless nature. Theurgy, therefore, is more than a spiritual practice. It is a philosophical stance that honors the unity within diversity. By engaging with the multiplicity of divine revelations, we not only deepen our understanding of the eternal, but also participate in its ongoing manifestation. This participatory relationship, grounded in humility and mutual respect, invites us to become co-creators of a world that reflects the infinite richness and coherence. Through this lens, theurgy stands as both a bridge between ancient wisdom and modern knowledge, and a pathway to the eternal. Science in sacred scripture, philosophy and the poetics of our revelatory spiritual experiences.
Reality can be approached in two different ways, either via more and more detailed information obtained through the aid of scientific analysis, or by striving for a comprehension of wholeness. The latter is the path of poets, musicians, and other artists, as well as practitioners of religion and mysticism. From the point of view of life as a whole, both ways are necessary. The questions concerning choices, values, and morality demand more, perhaps, the comprehension of wholeness than logical analysis and thorough experience. Both of these attempts at understanding reality are a part of culture. The purest expressions of these attempts are perhaps exact natural sciences and mysticism. Pauli acknowledged the need for both ways, and he pursued their unification or conjunction. For this reason, he also tried to thoroughly comprehend mysticism and phenomena related to it. Jung's psychology was of great help to him in this regard. K.V. Lorakainen, Beyond the Atom.
The rise of modern science is often mischaracterized as a victory of atheism over spirituality. However, this narrative oversimplifies the complex relationship between science, philosophy, and religion. Pioneers of the scientific revolution, such as Isaac Newton, Johannes Kepler, and Galileo Galilei, were deeply spiritual individuals who viewed their work as a means of understanding the divine order of the universe. Newton, for instance, spent considerable time studying theology and alchemy, viewing the physical laws he uncovered as evidence of a rational creator. His library was close to 1,800 volumes, with about one-third, roughly 600 books, related to subjects such as alchemy, theology, and biblical prophecy. Indeed, he was very busy studying and practicing alchemy for the last 30 years of his life. Kepler, too, saw his celestial discoveries as a reflection of God's geometric perfection. The shift towards viewing religion as irrelevant to scientific inquiry did not originate with the scientific figures of the Enlightenment. Instead, it gained momentum during this period and crystallized in the 19th and 20th centuries with the rise of positivism, materialism, and evolutionary theory. Thinkers like Auguste Comte championed positivism, asserting that only empirical science could reveal truth while dismissing metaphysical and religious perspectives as outdated. This view found reinforcement in the work of Charles Darwin, whose theory of evolution by natural selection reshaped understandings of life's origins. While Darwin himself avoided overt atheism, many of his contemporaries, such as Thomas Huxley, used evolution to argue for a materialistic worldview. They framed religion as incompatible with scientific progress. Together, these developments contributed to a cultural and philosophical paradigm that increasingly sidelined spiritual inquiry in favor of empirical reductionism. However, even among the most prominent scientists of the 20th century, there were those who did not entirely dismiss the spiritual and religious realms. Nobel Prize-winning physicists such as Werner Heisenberg, Niels Bohr, Erwin Schrödinger, and Wolfgang Pauli, though positivists, acknowledged the value and significance of these dimensions of human experience. This perspective, however, was overshadowed by the rise of atheism, which over time became equated with being scientific. Yet this alignment was never a true consensus among the great minds of science. If we focus solely on the best of them, the true leaders of the scientific revolution and its successors, rather than the majority aiming to secure funding or align with prestigious institutions, a more nuanced picture emerges. This atheistic, meaningless universe narrative gradually gained traction, eventually giving rise to the New Atheism movement in the 21st century, led by figures such as Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris. This movement not only dismissed religious belief as unnecessary, but actively framed it as a societal harm. Drawing on a materialist worldview, proponents of New Atheism positioned themselves as defenders of reason and evidence, opposing what they viewed as the superstitions and moral failings of organized religion. Their critiques extended beyond theology to target the social structures and traditions tied to religious institutions, portraying faith as incompatible with scientific inquiry and human progress. However, this shift from integration to opposition does not reflect an inevitable divide between science and spirituality. Instead, it represents a philosophical and cultural trajectory that increasingly prioritized empirical reductionism over holistic exploration. In doing so, it overlooked the profound connections between spiritual traditions and the origins of scientific thought, which historically sought to understand the cosmos in its entirety, both the seen and the unseen. This progression from harmony to opposition reflects not an inherent conflict between science and spirituality, but a cultural and philosophical choice made over time, often ignoring the deeply spiritual roots of scientific exploration. While modern materialism took root in certain areas of Western thought, German idealists like Immanuel Kant, Johann Gottlieb Fichte, and Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel maintained a profound connection between philosophy, science, and spirituality. They postulated that consciousness, or the mind, forms the foundation of reality, with Hegel famously describing the universe as the unfolding of the absolute spirit. This line of thought influenced later American philosophers such as Charles Sanders Peirce, William James, and Alfred North Whitehead. Whitehead, a prominent and respected mathematician and contemporary of Einstein, introduced process philosophy, framing reality as a dynamic interplay of experiences and events grounded in an underlying conscious order. He argued that the universe is not a mechanistic structure, but a network of relationships, deeply interconnected and suffused with purpose. These thinkers collectively proposed an alternative to materialism, presenting consciousness as the foundational ground state from which all phenomena arise, a perspective that aligns closely with many Eastern philosophies and resonates deeply with the principles of the School of Our Divine Infinite Being. In India, the integration of science and spirituality maintained a unique respect for both domains over centuries, cultivating an enduring synthesis rather than a conflict. For example, the contributions of Aryabhata, the 5th century mathematician and astronomer, are a testament to this harmonious relationship. Aryabhata's groundbreaking work in astronomy and mathematics, such as calculating the value of pi and understanding planetary orbits, was framed within a cosmological worldview where scientific insights were seen as reflections of a deeper divine order. His treatises often began with invocations to higher powers, integrating a rigorous scientific methodology with spiritual reverence. The tradition of Ayurveda, India's ancient medical system, also exemplifies this integration. Grounded in the observation and categorization of natural phenomena, Ayurveda evolved as a holistic science deeply rooted in spiritual principles, such as the balance of energies, doshas, and the interconnectedness of the body, mind, and spirit. Pioneers like Charaka and Sushruta approached health through empirical study while simultaneously aligning their practices with spiritual beliefs about the sanctity of life and the cosmic rhythm. In more recent history, Jagadish Chandra Bose, often regarded as the father of modern Indian science, seamlessly blended his groundbreaking scientific research with spiritual insights. His experiments on plant physiology demonstrated the responsiveness of plants to stimuli, leading him to propose that life and consciousness permeate all forms of existence. Bose's work was driven by his deep respect for Indian spiritual philosophies, which emphasized the unity of all life, and he often highlighted the spiritual implications of his discoveries. Similarly, Srinivasa Ramanujan, the mathematical genius, credited his profound insights into number theory and infinite series to divine inspiration. Ramanujan frequently claimed that the Hindu goddess Namagiri provided him with visions of mathematical formulas, which he then worked to prove. His story demonstrates the profound integration of spirituality and scientific achievement, where religious devotion served as a source of intellectual creativity rather than a hindrance. The integration of science and spirituality in India extended beyond individuals to cultural institutions. Ancient universities like Nalanda and Takshashila were not only centers of learning in subjects such as mathematics, astronomy, and medicine, but also hubs of spiritual practice and philosophical debate. These institutions cultivated an environment where empirical inquiry was encouraged alongside meditative and metaphysical exploration, laying the foundation for a worldview that saw no inherent conflict between science and spirituality. During the Indian independence movement, this synthesis was championed by figures like Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore, who emphasized the importance of maintaining spiritual integrity in the pursuit of scientific progress. Gandhi's vision of Swaraj, self-rule, included not only political independence but also a return to holistic approaches that respected India's spiritual heritage alongside modern scientific advancements. Tagore, a Nobel laureate in literature, wrote extensively about the relationship between science and spirituality, often advocating for a dialogue between the two as complementary modes of understanding. Even today, the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, reflects elements of this synthesis. While ISRO represents cutting-edge technology and scientific achievement, many of its missions include ritualistic blessings and invocations for success, demonstrating how spiritual traditions remain interwoven with scientific pursuits. This coexistence is not seen as contradictory, but as a continuation of India's long-standing tradition of integrating science and spirituality. In medieval Europe, the Catholic Church played a pivotal role in the preservation and advancement of knowledge. Far from the common misconceptions that the Church opposed scientific progress, many of the era's most significant intellectual achievements were fostered within its institutions. The monastic schools and cathedral schools that emerged in the early Middle Ages laid the groundwork for the university system. These institutions, such as the University of Bologna and the University of Paris, became centers where theology, philosophy, and natural sciences were studied in tandem. Scholars like Thomas Aquinas and Albertus Magnus, working within the Church's framework, explored questions that bridged metaphysical and empirical realms, synthesizing Aristotelian philosophy with Christian theology. The Renaissance further exemplified this integrated approach. Humanist scholars rediscovered ancient texts and fostered a renewed interest in the natural world. Figures such as Copernicus and Galileo, often associated with the scientific revolution, were deeply influenced by the scholastic tradition rooted in the Church. Copernicus, for instance, was a canon in the Catholic Church, and his heliocentric model was supported by a worldview that sought to understand God's creation through mathematical order and harmony. It wasn't until the Enlightenment that the relationship between science and spirituality began to shift significantly. The rise of empiricism and materialist philosophies led to the gradual separation of scientific inquiry from theological and metaphysical considerations. Thinkers like Francis Bacon and Isaac Newton, though personally devout Christians, laid the groundwork for a paradigm that viewed the natural world as a machine governed by universal laws, comprehensible without recourse to divine explanation. This divergence was less about inherent opposition and more a reflection of changing cultural priorities, where the focus shifted towards the practical and observable, often at the expense of the contemplative and spiritual. This historical arc, from the Church's fostering of intellectual inquiry to the Enlightenment's focus on empirical methods, reveals the deeply interconnected roots of science and spirituality. While these paths have diverged, their shared origin in the pursuit of truth reveal a complementary rather than a contradictory relationship. Over the past 300 years, the Western world has systematically separated the discourse of explanation from a spiritual science integrated with eternal wholeness, an approach countless civilizations before that time wove into every level of inquiry. Even during this transition, the spiritual dimension was far from extinguished. However, what was achieved by the larger academic community was a veiled consensus that the world had lost its spiritual soul. Fortunately, today, champions of reintegration are emerging, and with the advent of the internet and other means of instant communication, their voices are growing louder. Building on this convergence of contemporary scientific and spiritual inquiry, the work of thinkers like Bernardo Kastrup and Donald Hoffman exemplifies the power of blending philosophical rigor with scientific insight. Both scholars have challenged materialist paradigms, presenting compelling arguments that consciousness, rather than matter, is the fundamental substrate of reality. Through their respective projects and debates, they have consistently demonstrated the robustness of their ideas against critics. The School of Our Divine Infinite Being aligns closely with many of their theoretical conclusions, though we favor double aspect monism as developed by Jung and Pauli over pure idealist monism. This preference is not necessarily an argument against their perspective, but represents a nuanced distinction in alignment. We cover this more extensively in previous chapters. Bernardo Kastrup, a leading proponent of analytic idealism, argues that the physical world is a manifestation of a universal consciousness he calls mind at large, very much an equivalent to the logos of the Platonic one. Drawing from philosophy, quantum physics, and neuroscience, Kastrup contends that the materialist framework fails to explain the hard problem of consciousness, how subjective experiences arise from physical processes. Instead, he proposes that consciousness is the sole ontological primitive, with the physical world emerging as a symbolic expression of mental activity. In debates and writings, such as The Idea of the World, Kastrup has dismantled materialist positions by highlighting their explanatory gaps and logical inconsistencies, offering a coherent alternative rooted in idealism. Similarly, Donald Hoffman, a cognitive scientist, has revolutionized our understanding of perception with his inference theory of perception. Hoffman argues that evolution has not equipped us to see reality as it is, but rather as a user interface that enhances survival. This perspective suggests that what we perceive as the physical world is a construct shaped by our minds, not our objective reality. Hoffman's mathematical models, coupled with insights from quantum mechanics, bolster his claims that consciousness is primary and that the physical universe is a projection of conscious agents interacting. In debates and public discussions, Hoffman has consistently defended his theories against materialist critiques, demonstrating the limitations of reductive explanations of perception and reality. Together, Kastrup and Hoffman have not only advanced innovative theories but also effectively engaged in rigorous discourse, defeating critics in academic and public debates. Their work aligns with the broader tradition of thinkers who view consciousness as foundational, bridging ancient spiritual wisdom with cutting-edge scientific exploration. By challenging entrenched materialist dogmas, they pave the way for a renewed understanding of reality, one that unites the intuitive insights of spirituality with the precision of scientific investigation. This synthesis offers a compelling vision of a universe where consciousness and existence are deeply interconnected, inviting us to explore the profound mysteries of our shared reality. One of my favorite philosophers of science and a leading voice in the intelligent design movement is Stephen C. Meyer. While we may disagree with his conclusions, being perennial philosophers ourselves, whereas he arrives at distinctly Christian outcomes, his work, Return of the God Hypothesis, presents a compelling case for the resurgence of theistic explanations in science. Meyer argues that recent discoveries in physics, cosmology, and biology challenge the materialist framework that has long dominated scientific discourse. He highlights three major areas where modern science aligns with the idea of a purposeful creator: the origin of the universe, the fine-tuning of the cosmos, and the information-rich complexity of life. Myers discusses the Big Bang Theory as a key turning point, showing how the evidence for a beginning of the universe aligns with the idea of a transcendent creator. He draws on discoveries such as the cosmic microwave background radiation and the second law of thermodynamics to argue that the universe had a finite starting point, consistent with theistic cosmologies, particularly the Judeo-Christian concept of creatio ex nihilo, creation out of nothing. While Myers critiques materialist interpretations, such as multiverse theories, our school's work and that of Timothy Desmond show an alternative perspective that considers these theories as complementary rather than contradictory. Much of what you have learned in this central doctrine follows these concepts specifically. The multiverse concept, especially when paired with eternal inflation theory, does not inherently negate the idea of a transcendent origin. Instead, it suggests an eternal principle underlying the cosmos, giving rise to the Big Bang and the observable universe. This interpretation aligns with the idea of an eternal source that is both timeless and the origin of all temporal phenomena. Rather than dismissing multiverse theories outright, this view sees them as a modern framework that reflects the perennial principle of an infinite creative foundation for reality, whether one interprets it as divine, metaphysical, or an ultimate reality beyond comprehension. Again, these concepts we have been working out for you in several of the chapters above.
God desired that, as far as possible, all things should be good and nothing evil. Wherefore, when he took over all that was visible, not at rest but in discordant and disorderly motion, he brought it into order, considering that order was in every way better than disorder. Now the deeds of the best cannot possibly be or ever have been other than the fairest, and the Creator, reflecting thereon, made the world a blessed God. Plato Timaeus 30a. Number, indeed, is the cause of structure and order for the universe, and of the harmony by which all things cohere. It is through number that the eternal and unchanging ratios are implanted in the soul and the cosmos, linking the divine and the material realms. Iamblichus, The Theory of Arithmetic.
Myers' work highlights the extraordinary fine-tuning of physical constants and laws that make life possible. From the precise force of gravity to the delicate balance of the electromagnetic and nuclear forces, he argues that these conditions are so improbable as to defy chance or necessity. In Myers' theories, the multiverse hypothesis simply pushes the question back to why the multiverse itself would exist with life-permitting properties. Myers suggests that fine-tuning is best explained by the intentional design of a creator, who calibrated the universe for life. Plato and Iamblichus would agree completely with the Demiurge, the creator god, being at its center. A central theme in Myers' work is the origin of biological information, particularly the digital code found in DNA. Drawing from his earlier works, Signature in the Cells and Darwin's Doubt, Meyer argues that the intricate, specified complexity of genetic information is not something that random mutation and natural selection can adequately explain. Instead, he posits that the information-rich structure of life points to an intelligent source. His critique of materialist explanations, such as chemical evolution, highlights their inability to account for the origin of information itself, not just its replication or modification. Meyer also addresses the broader implications of these discoveries, suggesting that the shift away from materialism and back towards theistic explanations marks a significant turning point in the history of science. He notes, as we have earlier, that the foundations of modern science, such as Newton and Kepler, operated within a theistic worldview, seeing their work as a means to understand God's creation. Meyer argues that the return of the God hypothesis is not an abandonment of scientific rigor, but a recognition that theism offers a more comprehensive explanatory framework for the phenomena we observe. Meyer critiques the philosophical commitment to materialism, which often drives interpretations of evidence rather than allowing the evidence to guide conclusions. He asserts that materialism has become a kind of intellectual orthodoxy, dismissing theistic explanations not because they lack merit, but because they are deemed outside the boundaries of science. By revisiting theistic arguments, Meyer challenges this exclusionary stance and advocates for a more open, interdisciplinary approach to understanding reality. Meyer's work is a call to re-examine the relationship between science and spirituality, suggesting that the divide between them is not as inevitable as modern atheists claim. Instead, the increasing complexity and mystery of the universe invite us to revisit ancient questions about purpose, intelligence, and the nature of existence, with science itself leading the way back to the possibility of God, the totality state of existence, our divine infinite being. I strongly recommend that those of you who are academically inclined take the time to read Meyer's work. In the final chapters of Return of the God Hypothesis, he presents an argument for traditional Christianity. To prepare you for this as Platonic perennial theurgists, we highly suggest reading the next chapter first, where we show how Christian thought adopted and adapted the philosophical frameworks of Platonism, particularly the concepts of the One and the Demiurgos, to align with the theology of Yahweh and the Christian God. This synthesis of Greek metaphysics with biblical traditions played a pivotal role in shaping Christian theology and continues to inform contemporary discussions of a purposeful creator. For us, Christianity, especially Thomasine Christianity, fits seamlessly within the Platonic milieu. It is not outside the extensible pageantry of Platonic thought as it has unfolded through time. Myers would argue against that. The harmony between scientific inquiry and spiritual revelation becomes increasingly evident when we recognize their shared pursuit of universal truths. Both disciplines, though differing in methodology, reflect humanity's profound drive to uncover the foundational principles that govern existence. This convergence is neither abstract nor incidental, but arises from the inherent unity of the cosmos, a unity that pioneers such as Wolfgang Pauli sought to illuminate. Pauli recognized the profound relationship between archetypes and the laws of nature. His collaborations with Carl Jung demonstrated that archetypes, as universal templates embedded in the collective unconscious, are not confined to the realm of psychology or myth. Instead, they manifest as the foundational structures that shape both human understanding and the cosmos itself. For Pauli, the archetypes and the laws of nature were co-equal forces, each revealing different facets of an interconnected reality. This profound insight forms a cornerstone for understanding how spiritual practices and scientific inquiry ultimately move towards the same truths. Pauli's belief in this co-equality was not mere conjecture, but was grounded in his scientific work and philosophical reflections. In his exploration of quantum mechanics, he identified patterns that mirrored archetypal structures, suggesting that the physical world and the human psyche are interconnected through a shared underlying order. Pauli viewed archetypes as mediators between the material and the metaphysical, bridging the seemingly disparate realms of science and spirituality. This view echoes Jung's assertion that archetypes are analogous to Plato's forms, timeless and universal, shaping both thought and reality. The archetype of cosmic order, for instance, appears across disciplines and cultures, from the Hindu Rita and the Greek Logos to the modern understanding of physical constants. This archetype derives humanity's relentless quest to comprehend the principles governing existence. Whether articulated through the poetic verse of spiritual texts or the precise language of mathematical equations, these universal patterns guide our efforts to harmonize with the cosmos. Jung's assertion that intuition is incredibly precise resonates with both spiritual practices and scientific breakthroughs. Meditation, prayer, and inspired contemplation cultivate a profound awareness that mirrors the insights achieved through rigorous scientific analysis. This interplay between intuition and inquiry, as we've explained, is evident in the work of figures like Erwin Schrödinger, whose concept of wave-particle duality, central to quantum mechanics, finds striking parallels in the Upanishadic view that Brahman and Atman are one. Such discoveries demonstrate that intuition, whether expressed through spiritual insight or scientific creativity, serves as a bridge to universal truths. Wolfgang Pauli exemplified this principle in his belief that the scientific laws are themselves expressions of a deeper metaphysical order. He argued that the precision of scientific inquiry mirrors the archetypal patterns embedded in the collective unconscious. This alignment between the empirical and the archetypal reveals a cosmos that is not fragmented or mechanistic but deeply interconnected. Pauli's work suggests that the laws of nature are not merely descriptive but participatory, shaping and being shaped by the archetypal structures they reflect. This unity is further illustrated in the poetic and symbolic language of spiritual texts, which often presage the discoveries of modern science. The Bhagavad Gita's assertion of an indestructible essence within all beings aligns with the law of conservation in physics, which states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Similarly, the Tao Te Ching's reflections on balance and flow resonate with the scientific study of entropy and equilibrium. These timeless writings, born of inspired contemplation, parallel principles later quantified by science, demonstrating that both paths seek the same profound understanding of existence. The archetypal pursuit of understanding the infinite binds humanity's greatest intellectual and spiritual achievements. Through meditation, prayer, and inspired writing, we grasp truths about the human condition and the universe. Through scientific analysis, we quantify and model these truths with extraordinary precision. This dual approach, scientific and spiritual, illuminates the interconnectedness of all things and affirms the co-equality of their methods. As we reflect on the interconnectedness of spiritual intuition and scientific exploration, it becomes clear that both paths are guided by archetypes, universal templates that shape human understanding. Carl Jung captures this profound insight. All the more powerful ideas in history go back to archetypes. This is particularly true of religious ideas, but the central concepts of science, philosophy, and ethics are no exception to this rule. These archetypes are not merely symbolic, but serve as the cognitive architecture through which we decode the mysteries of existence. The precision of archetypal intuition, which Jung described as incredibly precise, illuminates its profound capacity to harmonize the primal depths of instinct with the higher faculties of reason. The human mind, equipped with these archetypal forms, perceives patterns and constructs meaning. This capacity mirrors the methods of scientific inquiry, where hypotheses are tested against observable phenomena, yet remain rooted in principles that transcend immediate experience. Archetypes, like Plato's forms, serve as the unifying framework for this process, structuring our understanding of both tangible and intangible realities. These are the universal dispositions of the mind, Jung explains, and they are to be understood as analogous to Plato's forms in accordance with which the mind organizes its contents. This analogy between archetypes and Platonic forms extends beyond metaphor. It signifies a deep ontological truth, that the structures of thought and reality are aligned. Scientific principles, as Scott Berman notes, depend on non-spatial temporal, mind-independent, fully existing scale-relative parameters that resemble Plato's forms, existing as perfect archetypes of the phenomena they describe. Throughout our written history, infinitely scalable, omnipresent, objective, and eternal archetypes have manifested in the narratives of philosophical canons, religious scriptures, and mystical poetics. The great drama of the Hindu Mahabharata, the numerous tantric texts, Buddhist scriptures, the biblical canon, the mighty Greek mythos, the enigmatic Orphic liturgy, and the ancient writings of Egypt and Mesopotamia, along with countless other examples of turning towards the eternal, have gifted the world with profound visions of these everlasting realities. Throughout our central doctrine, we have demonstrated how cutting-edge sciences, often inspired by poetic vision, reveal these same hidden truths. In almost every section of our central doctrine, we have drawn psychological and spiritual parallels to our most current physics. Let us now focus on this idea with a few illustrative examples. It is curious how, over time, the world has swung from embracing deep religious meaning, believing every word of a particular scripture, to outright abandoning and even taking offense at these same poetic manifestations. This process is observable across the globe. either a total acceptance of every word or a dismissal as the product of an uneducated imagination. Let us shift the frame of perspective in this investigation and offer the aspirant a guiding light through the endless literary opportunities available today. As Pauli and Jung might have argued, psyche and physics are dual aspects of a single total ontology. This perspective suggests that literary works, modeling the psyche of humanity, inherently align with scientific investigation. Although this can be maintained as a general rule for spiritual seekers, I will speak as a theurgist. As theurgists, we possess the unique advantage of viewing life, here and now, where we are most conscious and aware, as the apex of spiritual evolution. What lies beyond can, and is meant to be, synthesized and understood in this waking life, eternal, infinite, and immortal truths. This knowledge, while accessible to all after death, is available to the theurgist in life. Beyond the direct accessible truths gained through theurgic rites, meditation, yoga, and similar practices, there are certainly wide speculation about the afterlife or gods on other worlds that abound. Given the sheer variety, we might reasonably assume that most, if not all, are allegorical and likely incorrect. What we have demonstrated through our central doctrine, using numerous quotes from diverse sources, is that the grand explanations found in our poetics and religious literature reveal truths about our current existence that have equivalent counterparts in scientific discoveries. I have meticulously aligned many of these concepts with contemporary scientific understanding, and I am far from alone in this effort. Hundreds of other authors, particularly our colleague Timothy Desmond, have highlighted these connections. But what exactly is happening here? We posit that the truths and forms discovered in the world's religious writings follow a method remarkably similar to, if not identical with, the scientific method. Consider this. In physics, there is a tremendous effort to evidence a single, parsimonious, elegant equation that is, to the best of our understanding, correct. If one were to compile all the experiments, theories, practices, and missteps that ultimately led to this elegant equation, the results would resemble a grand narrative, a story of discovery culminating in mathematical truth. This narrative involves imagination reaching into an infinite unknown, seemingly full of form. Somewhere within this unknowable source lies the truth. The rising and falling of hypotheses, abstract and imprecise, gradually give way to increasing clarity as equations draw closer to the evidential moment when the truth is fully realized. Along the way, the narrative is filled with signposts, almost correct, almost accurate, but ultimately guiding toward the still unknowable final calculation. Then comes the revelation. The equation, in all its elegance, is published and a scientist earns a Nobel Prize. Most, if asked where the breakthrough occurred, would describe it in mystical terms. It just came to me while I was sitting at dinner. What ultimately fits neatly on a t-shirt, such as E=mc², carries a story of discovery spanning volumes of work, tracing a path all the way from Einstein back to Newton. If one were to compile and volumize this body of work, then place it alongside the Hebrew-Babylonian Talmud, specifically the Vilna edition, which contains approximately 5,422 pages across 22 volumes, it would rival, if not surpass it in size. Much like the Talmud, this hypothetical collection would include countless inquiries that, while not directly contributing to the final equations, serve as necessary steps along the path to discovery. Similarly, just as the Talmud engages in discourse stemming from the Pentateuch, the Torah, this theoretical body of work would trace its lineage back to foundational texts, such as Newton's Principia Mathematica. Empiricists and materialists may argue that the foundational structures of these works are fundamentally different, but are they truly? Both at their highest points represent profound attempts to peer into the infinite and reconcile ultimate truths with the phenomenal world. The Principia Mathematica is specific, granular, and grounded in empirical evidence, seeking to uncover the mechanics of the universe through precise observation and calculation. In contrast, the Torah is holistic, intuitive, and principle-based, offering a framework for understanding existence through moral, spiritual, and symbolic insights. Despite their differing approaches, both strive to bridge the gap between the infinite and the tangible, addressing the human desire to uncover the deeper realities that govern our world. In the same way that the Talmud's rabbinical commentaries expand upon the sacred truths of the biblical canon, this body of scientific discourse would repeatedly reference its origins, refining and expanding upon the principles laid down by Newton. Yet, as with the enduring mathematical formulas that withstand the test of time, perhaps only a few hundred pages of the Talmud, if condensed, could be considered a looking glass into the eternal God, reflected in the form of sacred script. This idea is fully embraced within the canon of science, but often misunderstood by biblical literalists, especially the New Earth creationists. These literalists, for example, may continue to believe that the Earth is only 6,000 years old, or that all cultures are either destined for servitude to the elitist class, or, through non-adherence to specific doctrines, condemned to the deepest levels of hell. Such interpretations obscure the broader, universal truths shared by both science and scripture in their pursuit of understanding the infinite. The Bible, the Mahabharata, the great mythical epics, the writings of Homer, the revelations of Aleister Crowley, the dreams of Wolfgang Pauli and Edgar Cayce, and the visions of Plato represent only a fraction of the thousands of spiritual and philosophical texts humanity has produced across millennia. These works, originating from every corner of the globe, share a common thread: the use of narrative, symbolism, and abstraction to explore the profound mysteries of existence. Whether sacred scripture, mythological epic, or visionary revelation, these texts embody an investigative method akin to the scientific process. They reveal abstract signposts, guiding ideas and principles, pointing us towards ultimate truths. These truths, though universal in essence, are inseparable from the cumulative journey that unveils them. This process of inquiry mirrors the scientific method in its search for understanding. Spiritual narratives often emerge as revelations from the depths of the psyche, offering insights into the fabric of reality that parallel the greatest breakthroughs in physics and cosmology. Myth is the secret opening through which the inexhaustible energies of the cosmos pour into human cultural manifestation, Joseph Campbell observed, revealing the profound role myth and story play in bridging the human experience with universal truths. Just as science builds on foundational theories, personal experience shapes how we engage with these grand narratives. For centuries, Newtonian physics reigned supreme as the prevailing explanation of the natural world, much like dominant religious doctrines shaped spiritual understandings throughout long periods of human existence. When quantum mechanics emerged, it revealed a deeper, more intricate reality without invalidating Newtonian principles at larger scales, which remained foundational. Similarly, ancient myths, religious scriptures, and philosophies are not relics to be discarded in light of new insights. Instead, they are enduring frameworks that remain integral to our understanding, providing a structure upon which we continue to build. As we advance, we refine these frameworks, discarding only the points that are clearly evolved and re-represented in more salient forms, much like new theories in physics that build upon the foundations of previous ones. This brings us to an enduring question. Are these narratives true? Is the Bible truly the infallible Word of God, as literalists often insist? Meaning every event, whether it be the creation of the world in 6 days, the global flood of Noah, or the parting of the Red Sea, happened exactly as described? Does Krishna genuinely dance with his gopis in an eternal realm, as depicted in the Bhagavata Purana? Or is this an allegory for the intimate and transcendent connection between the divine and the soul? Did he, as a young boy, lift the massive Govardhan hill with a single finger to protect the villagers of Vrindavan from torrential rains sent by Indra, the king of heaven? Did Muhammad really ascend to the heavens on the Buraq during the night journey, as believed by many Muslims, or is this a symbolic expression of spiritual elevation? Are the 10 plagues of Egypt and the miraculous manna in the desert literal occurrences, or did they represent divine intervention and providence as perceived through the lens of faith? Similarly, does the Book of Revelation describe literal apocalyptic events destined to occur in the future, or is it a vivid allegory for the trials and spiritual victories of the human soul? Are the miracles of the Buddha, walking on water, multiplying food, not unlike the miraculous Jesus, or emitting flames and water from his body, historical facts? Or are they illustrative metaphors of his enlightenment and teachings? Was the Garden of Eden a physical place, and did Adam and Eve truly converse with the serpent? Or is this a profound narrative about humanity's moral awakening and separation from divine innocence? In each of these examples, the question persists. Are they factual accounts to be taken at face value, or symbolic truths designed to convey deeper spiritual, ethical, and cosmic realities? These narratives, whether taken literal or interpreted allegorically, continue to shape human thought, inspire devotion, and offer frameworks for understanding our place in the universe. There is a reason for this. What makes myth and religious doctrines so enigmatic isn't merely the significance of their allegorical content. It is their ability to lead those who engage deeply with them, through study and meditative practice, into experiences of holiness, personal revelation, and divinatory insight. These narratives serve as conduits, bridging individuals into direct relationship with the infinite. While many spiritual and religious writings may lean toward the irrational, serve political purposes, or include mythical genealogies that are demonstrably untrue, they also contain profound spiritual, divinatory, and revelatory breakthroughs. Contrary to the reductive views of some secular psychologists, these writings often hold far more significance than mere allegory. Moments of insight drawn from such texts, often encountered during reflection, act as glimpses into the wholeness of the eternal, offering wisdom that transcends their surface meanings. Like the scientists marveling at the abstraction of their experiments, yogis, theurgists, prophets, and their followers are similarly attuned to the logos of the super-rational, as Iamblichus would describe it, through their contemplation of the wholeness of existence. Just as the calculations and hypotheses of science lead to breakthroughs, these stories convey truth through abstraction. They resonate deeply with the core of human experience, revealing realities that are simultaneously tangible and transcendent. Across cultures, whether in Hebrew scriptures, Hindu teachings, or Greek poetry, these narratives speak in a universal language of symbols and metaphors. Both science and the revelatory or divinatory methods of religious and spiritual inquiry, at their core, serve as pathways into the unknown, striving to illuminate the deepest truths of existence. Although the methods of investigation and the demonstrable value of the results differ, they often bridge the same profound truths. As a direct example, throughout our central doctrine, you have witnessed the deep integrations we have made with Indian poetics and spiritual writings. From Vishnu and the concept of eternal inflation, manifesting as singularities in the multiverse, to the relationship of Shakti and Shiva as analogues for matter, energy, and gravity, these ancient traditions resonate with profound cosmological insights. The intellectual traditions of ancient India showcase remarkable understandings of natural phenomena, mathematics, and science, many of which align closely with modern discoveries. These contributions, rooted in precise observation and logical reasoning, highlight the advanced state of knowledge in ancient Indian civilization. From early atomic theory to sophisticated astronomical calculations, the texts not only display philosophical depth, but also reveal practical applications of science, bridging the gap between spiritual inquiry and empirical understanding. The Rig Veda, in chapter 1, verse 33, line 8, provides a striking example, stating, "He who has faces on all sides, his glory manifests in the cattle and in the enclosure." Scholars interpret this verse as an acknowledgement of the Earth's round shape, with the phrase "faces on all sides" symbolizing a global perspective. This aligns with modern scientific understanding of the Earth as an oblate spheroid, slightly flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator due to its rotation. Such references underscore the observational depth of Vedic thinkers. The Vaisheshika Sutra by Kanada, 600 BC, presents an advanced understanding of the material world, introducing the concept of anu, atoms, as indivisible particles forming the foundation of all matter. According to Kanada, these atoms combine in specific ways to create the material diversity of the universe, and their interactions are governed by precise laws. This philosophical insight, born from intuitive and meditative inquiry rather than empirical experimentation, is strikingly aligned with modern atomic theory. Kanada's work also delves into the properties and behaviors of atoms, such as their motion, combination, and inherent qualities, marking it as one of the earliest systematic approaches to understanding matter. Interestingly, similar ideas surfaced in ancient Greece. Around 400 BCE, Democritus and Leucippus articulated an early atomic theory, positing that the universe is composed of tiny, indivisible, and eternal units called atoms. Their understanding, though devoid of Kanada's metaphysical depth, showcased an intuitive grasp of the fundamental building blocks of existence. These early atomic theories in both India and Greece shared a common visionary essence, highlighting a deep-seated human drive to uncover the hidden truths of the universe, through philosophical and intuitive reflection. We show how these theories developing in Greece have an Indian origin. For those interested, this is presented in our training on our website and YouTube channel. Fast forward to the modern era. The systematic foundations of our current atomic theory were laid by John Dalton in the early 19th century, whose work provided a precise and empirical framework for understanding the existence of atoms as the fundamental building blocks of matter. This scientific foundation was further expanded by groundbreaking discoveries by J.J. Thomson, who identified the electron, Ernest Rutherford, who uncovered the atom's nucleus, and Niels Bohr, who introduced a model of the atom that accounted for quantum energy levels. These discoveries culminated in the development of quantum mechanics and the standard model of particle physics, which continues to unveil the intricate and often counterintuitive nature of subatomic particles. While modern atomic theory is deeply rooted in empirical experimentation and advanced mathematics, its conceptual origins bear striking parallels to the intuitive insights of ancient thinkers like Kananda in India and Democritus in Greece. Kananda's Vaisheshika Sutra and Democritus's speculative atomic theories, though developed millennia earlier without the tools of modern science, both posited that all matter is composed of indivisible particles. This shared understanding suggests that both revelatory intuition and scientific inquiry, though fundamentally different in method, have led humanity to uncover the same profound truths about the nature of existence. Sayana's commentary on the Rig Veda, known as the Vedārtha Prakasha, was composed in the 14th century CE and offers a remarkably precise calculation of the speed of light, using traditional measures of distance and time. His calculation, approximately 299,792 kilometers per second, matches the modern value of the speed of light with astounding accuracy. This achievement predates the first reasonably accurate measurement of the speed of light by over 300 years. In 1676 CE, Danish astronomer Ole Romer observed the timing of Jupiter's moons to infer that light traveled at a finite speed. The only plausible explanation for Sanya's advanced calculation that was discovered in the spiritual scripture of the Rig Veda, written between 1500 and 1200 BCE, lies in the revelatory direct experience of the contemplative method employed by the Rig Veda's rishis. Their divinatory and intuitive science obviously transcended conventional empirical methods, offering insights into the profound truths of the universe. The Sulba Sutras from 800 BC, ancient Indian texts on geometry, exemplify the profound integration of science and spirituality in early human thought. These texts, primarily concerned with constructing altars and fire pits for Vedic rituals, offer detailed instructions for creating precise geometrical shapes. Their purpose was not merely functional but deeply symbolic, reflecting a worldview in which mathematics and sacred practices were intrinsically linked. The principles found in the Sulba Sutras align closely with what is now known as the Pythagorean theorem, and in fact, they predate Pythagoras by several centuries. This demonstrates that Indian scholars possessed a sophisticated understanding of geometry long before its formalization in Western traditions. Similarly, Pythagoras and his followers in ancient Greece also approached mathematics as a spiritual discipline. For Pythagoras, numbers were not merely tools for measurement, but symbols of the underlying harmony of the cosmos. His famous theorem, a cornerstone of geometry, was part of a larger philosophical framework that sought to understand the divine order of existence through mathematical principles. A framework that was foundational for Iamblichus theurgy, and still today for the school of our divine infinite being. Astronomy also flourished in ancient India, as evidenced by the Aryabhatiya by Aryabhata, 5th century CE. Aryabhata's worldview was shaped and informed by the intellectual traditions of India, which integrated science, philosophy, and spirituality. He would often reference concepts like yugas or cosmic ages in his writings. Aryabhata accurately calculated the Earth's circumference to be approximately 39,968 kilometers by observing celestial bodies and relating it to the Earth's rotation. By carefully tracking these motions over time, he could infer the Earth's dimensions, remarkably close to the modern measurements of 40,075 kilometers. He also proposed that the Earth rotates on its axis, explaining the apparent movement of the stars, a revolutionary idea for its time. Aryabhata's work laid the foundation for subsequent astronomical advancements in India and beyond. The Surya Siddhanta, which took shape between 400 CE and 1200 CE, and contains elements dating back to the first millennia BCE, is a seminal astronomical text that claims divine origins, describing the sun god, Surya, imparting this knowledge to the Asura Maya. The Surya Siddhanta incorporates Hindu cosmology, referencing the cycles of time, kalpas or yugas, and the movements of celestial bodies, which are spiritually significant in Vedic and Puranic traditions. The Surya Siddhanta provides accurate calculations of celestial movements, solar eclipses, and the length of the solar year. The text value for the length of a year, 365.25636 days, is incredibly close to the modern figure of 365.25636 days. This precision demonstrates the advanced observational and mathematical skills of ancient Indian astronomers. The ancient civilization of Egypt and Mesopotamia provide fascinating examples of how religious, mythological, and practical knowledge often intersected, leading to conclusions about the universe that resonate with modern scientific understanding. While their insights were framed within the context of divine revelation and ritual practices, their discoveries in astronomy, medicine, and mathematics align with principles we now understand through empirical science. Egyptian religious texts, such as the Pyramid text from 2400 BCE and the Book of the Dead from 1550 BCE, describes a universe governed by Mat, the principle of cosmic order, truth, balance, and harmony. In Egyptian cosmology, Mat was not just an abstract concept, but a divine force personified as a goddess. She represented the essential equilibrium that held the universe together, ensuring the cyclic pattern of nature, the justice of human society, and the proper functioning of the cosmos. This concept, central to Egyptian cosmology, parallels the modern understanding of the delicate balance of forces that sustain the universe. The Egyptians' detailed star maps and solar alignments suggest that their cosmology was not merely symbolic, but was also observational. For instance, the alignment of the Great Pyramid with the true north and the stars in Orion's belt reflects an understanding of astronomical cycles. Modern astrophysicists marvel at their precision, achieved without telescopes or advanced tools. The Egyptians saw the cosmos as an interplay of divine energies, much like modern physics envisions the quantum vacuum, a field of fluctuating energy that underpins all matter. The Mesopotamians, particularly the Babylonians, viewed the heavens as a divine manuscript through which the gods communicated their will via the movements of celestial bodies. They believed the cosmos was not merely a mechanical system but a living, conscious entity, where divine forces were intricately interwoven with the physical world, a concept that was openly syncretized with Plato's vision of a world soul. Their meticulous records of planetary motions, eclipses, and star patterns led to the development of a highly accurate lunar calendar and predictive models of eclipses. The Babylonian understanding of celestial influence, viewed as a manifestation of celestial consciousness, draws a striking parallel to the concept of gravity as consciousness, as outlined in our central doctrine, derived from quantum mechanics and string theory. This concept positions gravity, or consciousness, as the binding force that interconnects all things, forming the core of their liturgy and religious writings. These traditions later evolved into Hellenistic astrology, ultimately influencing the modern use of astrological science. Just as modern astrophysics describes gravity as the invisible thread orchestrating the dance of celestial bodies, the Babylonians perceived the heavens as a binding conscious force. If gravity is indeed consciousness, as we posit with infinite gravity and the singularity as its source, these concepts appear to have been deeply understood by our Babylonian predecessors. This force intricately shaped the rhythms of existence, reflecting the unity of cosmic order and divine will. In both Egypt and Mesopotamia, the sacred and the scientific were inseparable. Observations of the natural world were framed as revelations from the divine, yet the results often mirrored scientific principles discovered much later. Their methodologies, combining intuition with empirical observation, demonstrate that the pursuit of truth, whether through religious or scientific means, has consistently led to similar conclusions over the course of millennia. The battle between good and evil, in contrast to the dynamic ecstasy of the male and female in Abrahamic and Hindu religion. The Orthodox Abrahamic faiths and Hinduism offer starkly contrasting visions of the universe and humanity's place within it. While the former paints a picture of a cosmic war between good and evil, the latter sees the cosmos as a divine play of creation and destruction, a rhythmic dance between male and female energies. This fundamental difference has profound implications for how adherents of these religions understand existence, morality, and the ultimate goal of life. Setting aside the mysticism of Kabbalah with its dynamic inclusion of the feminine, as well as the Platonic writings of the Gospel of Thomas, understanding how this separation in opposition is different from each other is a crucial understanding that must be clearly understood. At the core of Orthodox Judaism, Christianity, and Islam lies the belief in a single, all-powerful God who created the universe and all that exists within it. This God is inherently good, and his creation was initially perfect. However, the introduction of evil, often personified by a fallen angel, Satan, disrupted this harmony, casting the universe into a state of conflict. This cosmic battle plays out on both a macro and micro level. On the grand scale, it's a struggle between God and Satan for control of the universe and the souls of humanity. This is vividly depicted in the Book of Revelation, where a great war erupts in heaven between angels led by Michael and the dragon, Satan, and his fallen angels. Revelation chapter 12, verses 7 through 9. This struggle is also reflected in the Old Testament, where Satan tempts individuals like Job, Job 1, 6 through 12, and even Jesus himself, Matthew 4, 1 through 11. On the individual level, this war manifests as the internal conflict within each person, torn between the desire to do good and the temptation to succumb to evil. The Apostle Paul eloquently describes this struggle in Romans 7:15 through 25, where he laments, "For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing." This internal battle is further emphasized in Galatians 5:17, which states, "For the flesh desires what is contrary to the spirit, and the spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want." This worldview has profound implications for morality. Good and evil are seen as absolute and diametrically opposed forces, often framed as a choice between obedience to God and rebellion against him. Deuteronomy 30:15 through 16 exemplifies this. "See, I set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction. For I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, and to keep his commands, decrees, and laws. Then you will live and increase, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land you are entering to possess." Humans are called to align themselves with God and fight against evil in all its forms. Ephesians 6 verse 10 through 18 urges believers to put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. While 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8 warns, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour." This often leads to a dualistic mindset, where the world is divided into us, the righteous, and them, the wicked, as seen in Matthew 25:32 through 33, where Jesus separates the sheep, the righteous, from the goats, the wicked. Hinduism offers a vastly different perspective. Instead of a single god, there is a multitude of deities, all manifestations of a single ultimate reality known as Brahman. This concept is beautifully articulated in the Rig Veda, chapter 1, line 164.46, which proclaims, "Truth is one. Sages call it by various names." The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, chapter 1, section 4, verse 10, further elaborates on this idea, stating, "Verily, in the beginning this word was Brahman. It knew only itself. I am Brahman." This suggests that the diverse pantheon of Hindu deities are ultimately different facets of the same divine essence. The universe, in the Hindu view, is not static but cyclical, undergoing endless cycles of creation, preservation, and destruction. The Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, line 18 through 19, describes this cyclical process. "From the unmanifest all beings manifest at the coming forth of the day. At the coming of night they dissolve again into that which is called the unmanifest. This multitude of beings, having come forth again and again, is dissolved at the coming of night, O Arjuna, and comes forth again at the coming of day." This cosmic dance of creation and destruction is often personified by Shiva, the god of destruction, and Shakti, the divine feminine energy, representing the dynamic interplay of opposing forces that sustain the universe. Within this framework, the concepts of good and evil are not absolute but relative. They are seen as two sides of the same coin, necessary for the functioning of the universe. The Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, verses 6 and 7, acknowledges the existence of both divine and demonic qualities within individuals and the world, stating, "There are two types of being in this world, the divine and the demonic. The divine qualities lead to liberation, while the demonic qualities lead to bondage. Creation and destruction, joy and sorrow, life and death, these are all part of the cosmic dance, inseparable and equally important. As the Isha Upanishad 1 states, into a blind darkness they enter who worship ignorance. Into a greater darkness they enter who devote themselves to knowledge alone." This highlights the importance of recognizing and accepting both light and darkness, knowledge and ignorance as integral aspects of reality. This worldview emphasizes interconnectedness and harmony. All beings are seen as part of the same divine reality emanating from Brahman. The Chandogya Upanishad, chapter 6, section 8, verse 7, famously declares, Tat Vam Asi, thou art that, emphasizing the inherent unity between the individual self, Atman, and the universal self, Brahman. The goal of life, therefore, is to realize this unity and achieve liberation, moksha, from the cycle of birth and death. The Bhagavad Gita 18:66 encourages this pursuit of liberation, stating, "Abandon all varieties of dharmas and simply surrender unto me. I shall liberate you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear." This emphasis on interconnectedness and the pursuit of liberation through the realization of unity finds striking parallels in pre-Christian Greek philosophy and religion. While the Greek pantheon, with its diverse gods and goddesses, might seem polytheistic on the surface, many philosophical schools, recognizing an underlying unity within this multiplicity, echoed the Hindu understanding of the divine as a single source manifesting in myriad forms. Herculitus, for instance, posited the concept of logos, a universal principle of reason and order that governs the cosmos. He saw this logos as a divine fire that permeates all things, connecting them and driving the constant flux of existence. He famously stated, "This world, which is the same for all, no one of gods or men has made, but it was ever, is now, and ever shall be an ever-living fire, with measures of it kindling and measures going out." Fragment 30. This echoes the Hindu concept of Brahman as the underlying principle of unity and the cyclical nature of creation and destruction. The Stoics also believed in a divine logos that permeates the universe, connecting all beings and guiding them towards a virtuous life. They emphasized living in accordance with nature, recognizing the interconnectedness of all things and the importance of fulfilling one's role within the cosmic order. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Constantly regard the universe as one living being, having one substance and one soul, and observe how all things have reference to one perception, the perception of this one living being, and how all things act with one movement, and how all things are the cooperating causes of all things, which exist. Observe too the continuous spinning of the thread and the contexture of the web." 440. This concept of interconnectedness, expressed through the interplay of male and female principles, finds a compelling parallel in pre-Christian Greek thought, particularly in Orphic philosophy and mythology. Orphism, a mystical tradition that predates classical Greek philosophy, viewed the cosmos as a dynamic interplay between opposing forces, often symbolized by male and female deities. Central to Orphic cosmology was the concept of a primordial being, often referred to as Phanes or Protogonos, who embodied both male and female principles. This primordial being, through a process of self-division or sacrifice, gave birth to the universe and all its inhabitants. This idea of a primordial unity that differentiates into male and female principles is echoed in the Orphic creation myth, where Phanes emerges from the cosmic egg, containing within himself both masculine and feminine qualities. He then gives birth to Night, who in turn produces the sky and the earth. This establishes a fundamental duality within the cosmos, a dynamic interplay between male and female energies that drives creation and sustains existence. This concept of cosmic duality is further reflected in the Orphic understanding of the human soul. The soul, according to Orphic belief, is divine in origin, but becomes trapped in the material world through a process of reincarnation. Liberation from the cycle of rebirth is achieved through purification and ascetic practices, ultimately leading to a reunion with the divine source. This process often involves recognizing and harmonizing the male and female aspects within oneself, reflecting the cosmic duality that underpins the universe. This, as we show in other trainings, was taken directly from the Hindu philosophical writings and exported into Greece through contact in the Persian Empire. We have a full training on this available on our website and YouTube channel. The influence of this Orphic worldview can be seen in the philosophy of Pythagoras and his followers. The Pythagoreans believed in the fundamental importance of numbers and their relationships in understanding the cosmos. They saw the number 1 as representing the primordial unity, while the number 2 symbolizing the first division into duality, often associated with male and female principles. This duality was further elaborated through the concept of limited and unlimited, with the former associated with the male principle and the later with the female. The harmonious interaction of these opposing forces was seen as essential for the creation and maintenance of order in the universe. Furthermore, the Orphic emphasis on the divine feminine finds resonance in the worship of goddesses like Persephone and Demeter, whose myths revolve around the themes of life, death, and rebirth. These goddesses embodied the cyclical nature of existence and the interconnectedness of all things, reflecting the broader Orphic worldview. In essence, both Hinduism and Orphic thought recognized the fundamental importance of male and female principles in the cosmic order. They saw the universe as a dynamic interplay of these opposing forces, a cosmic dance that sustains creation and drives the cycles of existence. This shared understanding highlights a deeper connection between these two ancient traditions, revealing a common thread in their respective worldviews. While both worldviews, being those of the Orthodox Abrahamic religions, have their merits, the Hindu perspective offers several advantages. The Hindu worldview acknowledges the inherent complexity of the universe, recognizing that good and evil are not always easily distinguishable. It allows for nuance and ambiguity, reflecting the reality of human experience. The Mahabharata, with its intricate narratives and morally ambiguous characters, exemplifies this embrace of complexity. This recognition of the divine dance of male and female energies, not as a battleground but as an ecstatic union, offers a profound pathway to liberation. Rather than seeking to conquer an external enemy, the focus shifts to transcending the internal limitations of duality and realizing one's true nature. This pursuit of self-realization, often cultivated through practices like meditation and yoga, allows individuals to experience samadhi, a state of blissful union with the divine. In samadhi, the illusory boundaries of the self dissolve, and one directly experiences the interconnectedness of all things, much like the Orphic mystic seeks reunion with the primordial source. This offers a profoundly fulfilling purpose in life, focused on inner transformation and spiritual growth. While the Abrahamic concept of a war between good and evil provides a clear moral framework, the Hindu vision, echoing the wisdom of Orphism, invites us to engage with the complexity of existence and recognize the divine dance within and around us. This offers a path towards greater understanding, compassion, and spiritual fulfillment, culminating in the ecstatic realization of our interconnectedness with all of creation. This version builds upon the previous discussions of Orphic thought by drawing a parallel between the Orphic pursuit of reunion with the divine and the Hindu concept of samadhi. It also emphasizes the shared understanding of the cosmos as a dynamic interplay of male and female energies, not as a source of conflict, but as an ecstatic union that leads to liberation. This ensures a smooth flow and reinforces the connection between the two traditions. The integration of Eastern philosophical and religious concepts into Western culture has been a gradual but significant process, beginning in earnest at the turn of the last century and continuing to unfold today. This cross-cultural exchange has been facilitated by numerous individuals and movements, each contributing a greater understanding and appreciation of Eastern thought in the West. Key figures like Swami Vivekananda and Swami Prabhupada played pivotal roles in this exchange. Vivekananda, a disciple of the renowned saint Ramakrishna, introduced Vedanta philosophy and yoga to Western audiences in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. His participation in the 1893 World's Parliament of Religions in Chicago marked a significant moment in this cross-cultural dialogue. showcasing the richness and depth of Hindu thought to a global audience. Swami Prabhupada, founder of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, or ISKCON, in the 1960s, popularized Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion and the worship of Krishna, making it accessible to a Western audience seeking spiritual connection and community. Beyond these influential figures, the Theosophical Society, founded in 1875, played a crucial role in disseminating Eastern religious and philosophical ideas, including those from Hinduism and Buddhism, in the West. By promoting the study and comparison of religions, philosophies, and sciences, the Theosophical Society helped to create a fertile ground for the reception of Eastern thought. Similarly, the Transcendental Meditation movement, popularized by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in the 1960s, brought simplified meditation practices to a wide Western audience, contributing to the growing interest in mindfulness and self-awareness. Of course, countless yoga teachers and gurus beyond these mentioned above have played a significant role in integrating yogic practices and philosophy into Western culture. From studios and ashrams to online platforms, yoga has become a ubiquitous part of the Western wellness landscape, offering a holistic approach to physical and mental well-being. However, amidst this diverse array of influences, the work of Aleister Crowley stands out for its unique and ambitious aim to fully integrate Western esoteric traditions like Kabbalah with Eastern systems, particularly those of Shakta Hinduism. Crowley's fascination with Eastern thought led him to explore and experiment with various practices and philosophies, seeking to create a synthesis of Western and Eastern esotericism. Both Shakta philosophy and Crowley's own writings emphasize the dynamic interplay between feminine and masculine divine principles. Shambhavi, a Shakta devotee and philosopher, eloquently articulates this concept in Yogic Secrets of the Dark Goddess. Kali manifests her Shakti through Shiva's presence. Kali is Narvahana, one whose vehicle is the male form of Shiva. She is the conduit for Shiva's self-revelation. This quote highlights the interdependence of Kali, the dynamic force of creation and destruction, and Shiva, the static ground of her manifestation. Kali's power, or Shakti, is only realized through her connection with Shiva, just as Shiva's potential is activated through his union with Kali. Crowley's concept of Nuit and Hadit, the primary deities in his thelemic system, reflects a similar understanding of this dynamic interplay. He realizes himself as the bed and working of Nuit and Hadit, as a particular form assumed by the latter for the sake of variety in his play with the former, and he partakes in this play by his self-realization, which he synthesizes from the events of his life. In this passage, Crowley describes the individual as the meeting point of Nuit, the infinite expanse of possibility, and Hadit, the point of concentrated will and energy. This echoes the tantric notion of the individual as the microcosm of the universe, a reflection of the divine dance between the masculine and feminine principles. Crowley's work, though often controversial, represents a significant attempt to bridge the gap between Eastern and Western esoteric traditions. By drawing inspiration from Shakta Tantra and other Eastern systems, he sought to create a new spiritual paradigm that embraced both the dynamic and the static, the feminine and the masculine, the individual and the universal. While his approach was undoubtedly unique, it reflects a broader trend of cross-cultural exchange and integration that continues to shape the spiritual landscape of the West. As theurgists, practitioners of both Eastern and Western esotericism, and perennial mandalans, we do not reject Abrahamic sacramental practices, prayer, and the invitation of the Holy Spirit. On the contrary, we rejoice with them, engage with their worship alongside them. However, in doing so, we do not engage in their battle between good and evil, or their prejudice against other religions. Their God and our divine infinite being, in the end, are ultimately the same. For us, this being represents the ecstasy of the totality of existence, which we hold in our hearts no matter where we find ourselves and with whom we celebrate the presence of God.